I'm very excited to welcome Montreal Alouettes quarterback Trevor Harris to the program today. I'm not sure if he's been on since he signed with the Owls, but let's bring him on in here. It started last week. There, he's getting himself comfortable. He said, Rod, what CFL rule changes would you like to see? And I said, who cares about me, Trevor? I'd like to hear your suggestions. And here he is today to have a good football chat. How you doing, Trevor?
I'm doing great, Rod. How are you?
Very well, thank you. My first question to you would be this. Are you all set for training camp? How are you feeling?
I feel great. Physically, feel great. It's just heading into the next phase of my throwing program starting this week. So ramping up throwing from 3 days a week to 4 days a week this upcoming week and getting the arm in shape for camp. I've been training with wide receivers and DBs to try and get my explosiveness up a little bit more. And brought to my attention, I'm 189 yards short of 1,000 yards rushing for my career. So the TH7 1000 quest begins.
Let's go.
Well, right. Well, don't try and get them all in one game, for the love of Pete. But Nealon Green, by the way, has the record for that. I called it. It was 200-plus yards rushing in one game, but I digress. Trevor, you brought up my thoughts on CFL rule changes, and it got me thinking because nobody ever asks. So I spent the weekend thinking about it. But you as a quarterback in the game, what would you like to see tweaked if you had a seat at the table and thought it would go through?
You know, it's a great question to ask. And I think where you've got to start, Rod, is what are you trying to accomplish? What are the holes or gaps in the league that we're trying to fill? What are we trying to accomplish by changing the rules? And if you look back to the last year or two, I think a lot of the fans are wanting more explosiveness, more offense. And to me, as an organization, as a CFL, I think we need more butts in the seats, more eyes on TV screens. And so I think that's where we start is how can we alter rules, keep the integrity of the CFL, and help those changes, help diagnose the problems, and create the change that we're trying to get to. And I know a lot of people have been talking about 3 versus 4 downs. I am not a proponent of changing from 3 downs to 4 downs because I think that's what makes the Canadian Football League unique. I do think there are possibilities of changing to maybe you get one time per series, you get a 3rd down where you don't have to punt. So, but that would be maybe something along the lines of before you get to midfield, maybe you get 1 4th down or 1 3rd down before you have to punt on the last down of the series. There's also ways to move in the Hashmarks to create more real estate for offenses, be able to use the entire field. There's people have brought up the ratio. I'm actually a proponent of expanding the ratio, but balancing it, maybe putting 4 offense, 4 on defense, having 2 non-box players on either side of the ball, just things of that nature. And by no means am I saying that this is the best suggestions ever. There's holes in every argument. There's 2 sides to every argument. But I think you could start at those sorts of things. But there's one other issue with players coming up that are on the minimum right now that are losing tons of money with the housing market. And so I think that we should, at the table, help the players get a little bit more housing money or have teams provide housing for players because Americans that are traveling up, Canadians that are traveling across, they're getting crushed by the housing. I know that was a lot in one, but I've had some conversations with my buddy Matt Francis on this and Natea J, and we've kind of gotten into some of the back and forths with it.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's like if you want to talk about CFL changes, it's like pulling a little string on a rug. You could just unravel all day. So it's like, because the rules overall are really good. They were put together by some really smart people. But if you really wanted to tinker with things, I think you could change a lot. And by the way, if you don't mind taking a few fan questions, Trevor, Ryan H. is watching on YouTube. He says, amazing to have Trevor Harris on. What's the hardest part about joining a new team? That's a pretty good question, man. You've done it a few times. What's the hardest part?
Each team has its own culture and certain expectations, the way things are run. And it's about adjusting to the everyday, day-to-day life of what it's like in that locker room. You know, there's different personalities in every locker room, learning how to communicate with each teammate. Because as a leader, it's not so much what you say to people, it's how you talk to people and how you make them feel. And so I pride myself on being a relational person with all my teammates. And I think that's always a big change. And then you've got facility changes as well, and then offensive changes. But I would say the biggest one is adapting to the culture of each team.
Wayne in Victoria, BC writes in, he says, I can tell by the way Trevor talks that he's a good guy and cares about the game. I could tell that pretty early on too, Trevor, but where I realized that you and I would really get along when I heard about your mindfulness routine, it was when you were in Ottawa when I first heard about that. How you just clear your mind and what a big part of your game that's been, because I'm huge on that too, as you know, and of course our faith aspect too. But back to those rules, it's like they're talking about it, Trevor, because scoring was down last year, as you know, the lowest since 1974. And I just think that this is a knee-jerk thing that I still think the offensive rules are fine. What do you think was the reason for the scoring being down to the degree that it was?
I think a year off had something to do with it. I think Dave Dickinson talked about it a little bit, where you get into first down and you're not successful. Teams are just dropping into, doing a Rolodex of zone coverages and making it really difficult. And most of the offenses in the league right now are a lot of the West Coast system, the Mark Trestman, Scott Milanovich system. And that's always predicated on trying to dictate coverage with formations and motions and sets. And that's just not happening anymore, where teams are dropping 8 and even 9 into coverage and making it difficult, taking away primaries and forcing you to throw the ball underneath and rack for first downs. And then you're 2 and out punting quite a bit. And so, yeah, it could be a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but I also think the game's changing a little bit, in my humble opinion. Could be wrong. That's why I kind of thought that there are a couple things that you could do. Like if you said you're not allowed to punt the football past midfield, if it's third and 4 at the plus 51, there's a lot of field position and real estate on the line. And not only that, if you punt and pin somebody at the 5-yard line, that's a very big difference from not converting and them starting at the minus 52 or whatever I just said in that example. And then giving yourself an extra down one time per series before midfield would be an interesting one as well, because then you're giving the offense a little bit more leeway in that. And I think if you can create better field position for certain teams and make a higher risk, I think it makes the game a lot more fun. But there's rules in the CFL I don't think you want to tinker with, and I know this is contradictory, but the 3 downs in general, I think that's what makes the game great. But maybe there's a way to kind of tinker with it a little bit here and there. And like I said, these are just suggestions. I know there's going to be maybe some people get upset with me and yell and say, well, you can't do that because of this. But of course, but it's fun to talk about and good to get ideas thrown out there. And that's why no idea is a bad idea. That's why you kind of take these in and see what happens. But so you kind of think it's more of a knee-jerk reaction. You don't really think we need too many rule changes.
No, and I think the talk of going to 4 downs is a business thing, has nothing to do with football reasons, just to align it more with American football. That's what I think that it is. And now they're talking about narrowing hash marks. And I don't really want to do that for 2 reasons. It's going to be really expensive, as you would imagine, to pull up the hash where they are and sew it back into a new spot. 2, I like the wide side of the field because a quarterback can't hide. My good friend Henry Burris had a gun. Trevor, there was no dead spots on the field for Hank. Right? When guys come up to Canada, you can't hide on that field, and it just kind of separates the men from the boys. You're not afraid of the wide side throws either, right? So that to me makes it unique. But where are you on the hash mark discussion of narrowing them?
I think it would be an advantage for the boundary DBs because the field DBs can play off a little bit more and jump routes because they have more time to recover. So I think it would help the boundary DBs, but the field DBs wouldn't have as much leeway. So it would affect them a little bit. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that's a reason why scoring would be down, although it would cause more real estate for the offense and help offenses a little bit. But like you said, I think that might be a little bit more of a knee-jerk reaction. But in high school in the United States, it's really wide hashes, and it's a little bit closer in college and a little bit closer in the NFL. And so I wonder what the entire reasoning for that is. But I think it is fun to look at some of these rule changes to see if we could help scoring, because fans on average would rather watch a game that's in the 30s and 40s scoring versus, a 12-9 defensive slug out game, Yeah,
well, I agree, but the NFL has high scoring and they have low scoring. I think it's a game-to-game thing versus what the rules are. Hey, lastly, Jack's watching in Alberta, and he says, Trevor nailed it. I know USA players who are paying rent in Canada and in the States. Hard to do on 60,000 Canadian. Just on the money thing, Trevor, because other fans want to know your thoughts on the U.S. leagues, the USFL, XFL's coming back. Let me ask you this. Why do so many guys come to Canada then when you could stay in the States and try and earn U.S. dollars and stay at home? Why is Canada, it seems to be a preferred league for Americans. Why is that?
Yeah, great question. I think it has to do with stability. Guys know that the league is going to be there. There's been a lot of trying and failing in terms of leagues. With the UFL, I was part of the UFL when that league folded. And I was part of the team, folding there. And arena football, you're making $400 a week here. And then the XFL, the AAF, and now we've got the USFL coming. So I hope these leagues do well, but I think it has to do with quality football. You're going to finish a season, and just the longevity tradition of the CFL, I think, is big. But yeah, it is a different brand of football, and it's also a way to expand your horizons. I think as a quarterback, it's more difficult to diagnose defensive coverage in this league than it would be in 11-man football.
Wow, there's a great answer. Trevor, we kind of scratched the surface on this. Hopefully, maybe we can do it again before training camp. If not, we'll see how the season goes. But good luck with the training and everything, and I can't wait to see you out there. My best to you and the family.
Always, Rod. Appreciate you. Always good to see you, man.
CFL great Trevor Harris of the Montreal Alouettes.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of the Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.